especially it being the last day of Pride Month,
Yeah.
right? It can't just be like, oh, we're still going to show certain Black stories. Like, I want to see more Black queer love stories because it's not like they don't exist. They absolutely exist.
Right.
And, like, it's important for us to see them and to highlight them and love on them too.
Hey everyone, it's Megan. We're gonna ignore this right here. So, in case you didn't see my post or story, hey there, Bone Rose, AGS wedding coordinator. So, in case you didn't see the post or story before, essentially we're just gonna edit this part out of my face. I had a little bit of an owie, a little bit of an issue last week, and so we're just gonna pretend this is not there. My stitches came out, so everything's looking better, but I look a little ridiculous. So I'm gonna slow it down like this so you can't see. And Jordan's joining us tonight. Yay!
Hi.
See, Jordan looks
Oh,
beautiful and fantastic, and I look like
thank you.
I don't know what I look like.
No, you look beautiful.
And it's hard because I
Yeah.
can't like fully smile, so I'm like trying to smile and like my band-aid's going crazy. But
I'm sorry.
no, don't be it was my own stupid fault. For anyone who was not aware of how incredibly clumsy I am.
I'm sorry.
If there's like clumsy awards or clumsy like
I would get first place, I promise you.
sorry, that's totally me. I've done the stupidest things, like what, you wake up at night and you walk and you don't turn a light on because you're like, oh, I know where I'm going, and you like pat yourself in your chin. Yeah, one time I it's so embarrassing. I broke a rib standing at my counter. Who does that? Only me. Only me.
Oh
Like
my God.
those are the things, like you're standing at your kitchen counter and you like move your foot and you slip, and then it's like all of a sudden you impale yourself with the side of the counter because
Oh my gosh.
seriously, once upon a mouse is so relatable, constantly banging, right?
I'm always stubbing my toe. I'll like slip on nothing. I'll trip on like nothing.
Me
I'll be
too.
like, okay, why did I just wobble?
I know. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
So we're totally kindred spirits that way. But if you guys don't know
Mhm.
Jordan is, first of all, Jordan's amazing. She is from, so it's All the Days or Love All the Days? Because I know your Instagram.
It's all the days. Yeah, the website and all the social stuff is love all the days because finding all the days was really hard. But it's all the days.
Okay. Okay. Well, I love Jordan all of the days in the year.
Oh, I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
She's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, so anyone who doesn't know, kind of, especially recently, all of the cool things that you've been doing
Yeah.
in the industry, and I'm sure that you're just like crazy, but
Yeah.
so tell us a little bit about kind of what, first, your company, but then also kind of what led you to really speak up. I saw the video and we posted that because that was something that was like, it was so heartfelt, and you could tell that it was something that you were really struggling with, and all the things that you really had to kind of overcome just to even get to that point. So I'm not going to speak, so I'm going to let you kind of tell everyone about that.
Awesome. Well, hello everybody from a very hot Texas.
Oh.
I hope everybody is safe and sound. So just to give a little bit of backstory, I started my company in 2016. I'd worked part-time at venues and been accustomed to the whole wedding shenanigans. And I was like, you know what? I really am kind of dismayed that in the seventh largest city in the country, there's such a lack of support for marriage equality and not just same-sex weddings, but the LGBTQIA community, like as a whole. And so I forget that I have a lot of friends who are reporters, and I posted something on Facebook after having this interaction with someone who was getting married at a local venue that has since changed their name. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do a wedding at a plantation. I'm just not. And for me, it was like kind of finding almost like a dark comic sense of like, this person asked me to work at a plantation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on,
Yeah.
you know? And so it got picked up for a story by Attention, and I didn't really think it was going to have the impact that it did or go as far as it did, but it did. And at first it was like, oh, that's so cool, people are paying attention, but then, you start reading comments and you start seeing people make death threats to you, and people are sending emails. And then, I was looking at links on my website and saw that this very obvious white supremacist blog in Georgia picked it up. And so it went from being afraid of, spotlight, but then also being afraid that someone could hurt my family or me.
No.
And so I think I took that in my brain as like, you know what, I'm just not going to say anything. I'm just going to be very quiet. I'm going to shrink myself as much as possible. I'm going to, self-sabotage in a lot of ways, like forget to ask my photographers for pictures, or just, do these little things so that I never felt that way again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with this, it just got to the point where I realized like all the fear that I had related to, scrutiny and having a larger audience of people paying attention to me really fell out of the window, because I was so sad and exhausted and angry and just tired, and that was when I made the video. And it was really just about like, hey, I appreciate that people are having this conversation finally. It's not like Black Lives Matter is new by any stretch of the imagination. And even like in a historical context, there's been an iteration of this happening almost every generation, of Black people being like, hey, don't kill us, just very simple things. And so I think I just got overwhelmed that there are so many people who had never before made any type of admission, or any type of like saying like, oh, hey, this is something that's important to me. All of a sudden we're like, Blackout Tuesday, we're gonna mute ourselves so that we can amplify these voices. And I was like, are you sure you want to amplify mine? Because I've got something to say. And so that video went around, and the petition has gone around, and I mean, Yahoo picked up the story, so that was pretty cool.
That was awesome.
And just being able to see so many people that I've always looked up to and aspired to have like that level of business, them getting at the forefront and finally getting more recognition, that's well overdue, right? Has been helpful. But I think one of the things that I really want, especially it being the last day of Pride Month, right? It can't just be like, oh, we're still going to show certain Black stories. Like, I want to see more Black queer love stories, because it's not like they don't exist. They absolutely exist.
Right.
And, like, it's important for us to see them and to highlight them and love on them too. And also not just in front of the camera of these couples, but also behind the scenes of all of these amazing Black event professionals who have been in the game for like, I've been in my business for 4 years, right? There are people who've been doing this for 20 plus years who are just now getting the recognition, mainstream at least. And it's like it's just way overdue. So very long introduction. Sorry, everybody. Just wanted to put some perspective into just kind of like, so it feels like it almost came out of nowhere, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's just kind of how all of this has started.
I love that. So now, for anyone who doesn't know about the about the petition, why don't you kind of explain what that is, or what it entails?
Yeah. So I created the petition like a day or two after. Oh, I love Once Upon a Vow so much. I created the petition a day or two after I made the video, because I was like, okay, maybe we need to have some more action behind this thing. And really, it was about asking major brands, major publications and outlets to really step up, right? And go beyond the Black square, go beyond the one-time post, and let us know about what initiatives and practices that they're going to put into place
Mhm.
long term that are going to highlight not just Black love stories, not just Black queer love stories, but also Black event professionals. So what are we doing, right? And then let us know that, you know, an admission of like, hey, we're committing ourselves to anti-racism.
Mhm.
Two, let us know what actions and initiatives you're going to take to really stand behind that. And then three, give us deadlines so we can hold you accountable.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that can freak people out a little bit about accountability is that I think they associate it with it being this negative thing where we're going to make you feel crappy and all this other stuff. And it's just like, it's also uncomfortable for the person holding you
Totally.
accountable, right? Right? Like, it's not like anybody, it's not like I want to be doing this. Like, it's sad that it has to be even requested in 2020, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just the petition. Thankfully, people have been signing and sharing, and I've been very overwhelmed by the reaction to that as well. But I'm just hoping that we keep gaining traction and people, even small businesses, the fact that there have been so many small businesses in the middle of a freaking pandemic, right? Whose money, like our industry has been hit so hard by COVID-19, but who are like, hey, we still want to dedicate our time and our resources to this, to education, to learning, to community. Like if small businesses, 1 and 2 person businesses can do this, large corporations can do this for sure.
Totally. And so, I mean, what have you, so did you watch there was like a panel webinar with Terica and Denise.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you, and tons of publications,
Yeah.
from The Knot to Green Wedding Shoes and
Mm-hmm.
um, Be Collective. And I mean,
Yeah.
there was literally like everybody on that.
Yeah.
Belle the Magazine, Pretty Pair Bride, Equally Wed. So all of
Like everybody was on that panel. It was so cool to see that.
so yeah, what did you think?
Yeah, so I think I tried to stay on for as long as I could, and I'm sad that I couldn't see the whole thing, because it had so many important voices on there.
Hmm.
And if you aren't following the Be Collective, if you aren't following Terica Cocktails, please go do so. They've been doing this work way longer than I have, and I just want to make sure I put credit where credit is due. But they moderated this panel of all of these voices that we have been, you know, really waiting to hear from. And I wish I could have stayed longer because I had a client call to take. But I will say the fact that these two women, I'm so sorry, Denise Lilly Engagement,
Yes.
Be Collective was on there, but Denise Lilly Engagement and
Tara.
Terica were the ones who moderated. Apologies.
No.
Again, I love giving people credit. I don't want anybody coming for me.
Okay.
So the fact that these two women have not only built the careers that they have, but are able to leverage the respect that they have garnered in their businesses to get all of these people
Yeah.
in a panel ready to go. Hats off to them, right? And I really want, my only thing is I really want people to recognize like this is a first step. This is a first step, you know, having these conversations, allowing the people that work at these businesses, however large or small, to be listening. That's a first step, right? We want to be able to back that up with actions, consistent actions,
Hmm.
and not just say, hey, we're in this moment for a month or maybe a quarter, you know. No, it has to be something that they are committing to for the long haul. So to be able to see them put together that panel, to be able to see all of those voices saying like, hey, we realize there's some stuff that needs to be adjusted and some things that need to be changed. I'm really grateful for that. But, you know, I know that we can do better.
Yeah.
I know that we can do more. And so I really want to be able to see, okay, what are we doing now? What's coming after this? What are the actions that are going to align with the statements that a lot of these companies are making? And I think that'll put a lot of us at ease
Hmm.
because this is not the first time, you know. I think it was Jacayla Rivers who came up with hashtag change the wedding industry last year. There have been so many initiatives for us to be more inclusive, more intersectional. Like this isn't the first iteration of it. I
Right.
think it's the most impact and attention we've been able to get because everybody's at home, to be quite honest. Um, but I do really want to see like what are the action steps? What are we doing after this?
Yeah.
I think that'll put me at ease a little bit more.
That, yeah. And Queer Efficient was saying how that's the low hanging fruit. Like we can do better because
Yeah.
really, I mean, it is. It's like, that's great that you're showing up on a webinar, and that's great that you
Hmm.
posted a black box, and that's great. Like all of those things are great. But I mean, really talking about like, what are the things that as leaders in the industry and publications that are, I mean, I can't remember who said it, but you know, when it comes to publications, like the gravity, the weight of
Hmm.
what opportunity they have. I think it was Kirsten
Yeah.
Blewett about how they have the opportunity to really shape the way people see each other and see
Yeah.
themselves, because those are the things that, you know, that matters. Like it's all
Yeah.
about that representation,
Yeah.
and without that, it's not only how people, like, if they don't see themselves, it's also about how other people don't see them either, by not
Yeah.
seeing
Yes.
them.
Yes.
There is this
Yeah.
unconscious feeling of, well, it must not be good enough, it must not
Hmm.
be pretty enough, it must not be
Hmm.
worthy enough to be published the same way that every other white wedding is.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that's really what I think is important to note. It's not just like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, give us, you know, how, what's your quota going to be, and we'll be
Hmm.
tallying the mark and then
Yeah.
figuring out what it is. It's really about like, okay, so what's your game plan, and
Hmm.
how are we able to really hold you accountable? Because I think that's what's so important. It's really about
Yeah.
the fact that we're so like we're together on this. Like we have to be together on it,
Yeah.
and really work together.
And you touched on a really beautiful thing that I think I've said a couple times. Like it's so easy to think, oh, you know, our industry is very frou-frou, it's very frilly, it's inconsequential, you know, it's not a big deal. Why are we making such a big deal about, you know, this? Why are we bringing in Black Lives Matter and all of these political elements? For me, like storytelling narratives, that's like I love that. I've always loved writing. When we have narratives around who has access to power, who has access to money, and who has access to happiness, they dictate how people live their lives.
Yeah.
And if you're telling a significant group of people, and this is the tricky thing about it, right? People think if you're not saying something, then you're, oh, how could I be telling anybody? But
Right.
by not showing us, you are sending a very clear message, right? Um, so when you don't show couples, you know, right? When you don't show the intersectionality of the Black experience, when you don't show trans couples and queer couples, like we don't see ourselves, anybody who's marginalized, you begin to think, oh, you don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I've had countless consultations with people who've hired me and haven't hired me, but have said like, oh, I didn't see myself, right? I didn't see myself in this magazine that's 300 pages long.
Right.
What are we doing? Because then it's like, oh, well, maybe I don't need to have the wedding that I was having, or I was thinking of in my brain. Maybe I'm not deserving or worthy of that. And that could make you question if you're even worthy of love, right? If you see all these other people getting their happy ending, or as I like to say, happy commencement, because it's really a beginning. Um, you see everybody else having these like amazing opportunities to express their love and show it to other people, but you don't see yourself.
Mhm.
And it's just like, oh, is that even possible for me?
Right.
And I mean, this is, I'm sorry, my little stand that I had is I couldn't find it. So I'm like playing with my hand. But you know, like if you don't see yourself because you're plus sized or
Yeah.
disabled,
Yeah.
if you're trans, a person of color, black, indigenous, if you don't see yourself in these magazines and it paints this very clear picture of who love is available for, that's dangerous, right? And that is political. And so to say like, oh, well, you know, we don't need to talk about this and, you know, that's not a big deal. No, it absolutely is. And I that's the thing that I really feel like I've been really trying to get people to understand is like it's not it might seem inconsequential to other people because you've always been a part of this narrative. You've always been seen, you've always been celebrated. And I say that to everybody who comes to all the days for anything. Exactly, queer fishing, the personal is political. That's perfect. The crux and purpose of our industry as wedding leaders is to help people be seen and celebrated.
Totally.
That's political, right? That's absolutely political. And so, like, for us to say, oh, well, it doesn't matter, it's not a big deal, calm down. Of course, you can say that when all you see is yourself. But if you don't, come on, we can do better. And even, I've been able to talk to some of these brands. I'm grateful for people helping me like be able to connect with them. But even, in one instance, I had a really uncomfortable conversation with somebody who it became very quickly aware that they were not ready to have a conversation, right? And so it was just kind of like there was a lot of defensiveness and passive aggression that I just didn't like.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those things. It was like, well, I'm already doing it. Don't you see? Like I've had Black people on my feed. I'm doing this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that's great. It's not saying show one Black person, show one Black couple every 15 squares. Do better.
Yeah.
Do better. That's what we're saying, because ultimately, if you have people like in the streets rallying around like, hey, our lives matter, our loving matters, our living matters, right?
Yeah.
Not just, oh, we see that this terrible unnecessary tragedy happened again and again and again. In every city there's a name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is terrible to even have to say that out loud.
Right.
But in every city there is a name. There is someone who hasn't received justice or has been wrongly murdered. And like to say like, oh, we see that. No. Don't just see it when we're dead in the streets. Show us when we're living. Show us when, we're working our tails off to build a business in an industry, or we're helping couples. Show the couples who like have had these amazing stories come together almost as kismet. Like show that, show the joy, show the love, show all of the spectrum of this experience that other people are granted and other people are not, because that matters.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, those are the things that, again, it's so frustrating to try to have conversations sometimes with whether it's people, publications, companies, other businesses, whoever it is, when, and it doesn't even have, like, it's not just about representation, diversity, racism, equity. It's not just that conversation. It's any conversation. If you say, hey, I think we can do better. I think you can do better. This affects me and it's not meeting the mark. For that person to then say, yes, it is. Well, they're not the deciding factor of whether or not your client, your couple, your business, whatever, like sees themselves represented. The person who feels that they're not represented is the one who gets to say, I don't feel like I'm being represented. Like, if you're being represented, you can't say we're representing someone else when you're not that person. Like you can't interject your experience into somebody else and say it's good enough. And I think it's so frustrating because it's like, I've had conversations earlier today even that were with people who it's like to have to question someone's dignity as a human being, to then say whether or not you even want to hear what they're experiencing and give it some type of validation. Like that's painful. It's painful to listen to that, and it's painful to be on the receiving end of that, so those are things that I think, whether it's a business, a big company, publication, doesn't matter. If you're hearing that someone else is saying to you, hey, I don't feel represented, you should not be like, okay, well, I think you are. You should also not say, well, how many how many posts do I need to post for you to feel represented? Because it's not about the
Yeah.
minimum. This is not about like, okay, so if I do 3, will that be enough? No, it's about that.
No, yeah.
Okay, so what can I do? Like, what more can I do? Please tell me, because I want to do it. If you really
Yeah.
want to do it, you're going to say, what else can I do? Right.
Yeah.
And that's, queer fishing said, like, that's privilege. That's exactly, that's what it is really, if you are in that position and someone's coming to you to act accordingly, is to really ask them,
Yeah.
what can I?
I had a friend who said this so brilliantly, Allison Davis of Davis Row.
Yes.
She said this so brilliantly. It's like you're screaming for help, right? Like at some point of the day, you know, something happens, it keeps happening, and you're screaming for someone to pay attention. And where we are now is that, you know, some people's necks have turned into our general direction. But to say like, oh, we've met the moment, we've finished it, we got it, it's taken care of. These are, I think the queer officiant said it earlier, the personal is political, right? All of the things that we're asking people, not just myself, but others, to change and assess, it starts at the personal. And I think that's the part where we're going to see, I hope not, but knowing human behavior, I think that's the part where we're going to see some pause and a lot of pushback, is because, okay, let's say they start posting more pictures of Black couples to like placate us or whatever. You know, the same people who had the content before are still at those companies. So how are you hiring different? How is your editorial bias changing? How are you checking your own privilege, right? And really doing the work to make sure that you don't get into this again. And that is like that's what I meant by that long lasting action. And it's uncomfortable. And that's where I think a lot of people have been surprised that I'm the way I am. Like, I'm very like kind, it's annoying, I'm a diplomat, I'm always trying to like make sure people are at ease and stuff. But like I can grant that grace, but at the same time, like recognize like the work ultimately starts here.
Yeah.
It starts here.
Yeah.
If you're not doing that, then it doesn't matter if you post 1 billion of these pictures.
Right.
Because people can sense. People are not stupid. People can sense when it's genuine and when it is, you know, just a reaction.
Right.
If it's a knee-jerk reaction to get people, to get your metrics met, or to get people to calm down, but it's not actually about the change, there's no actual heart in the change, and what are we doing, right? If you're not hiring Black, brown, queer people in your companies, and not just, oh, well, 2% of our employees are Black. Great. In what positions?
Right.
Are they only entry-level positions?
Right.
Because if those decision makers don't have people who feel supported, not just in the room, but supported in the room, nothing's going to change. So what are you really willing to assess in yourself and in your brand to change it? Not just say like, we love Black. I feel I said this to so many people. It really felt like, you know, the Titanic hit the iceberg and the captain was like, emergency, emergency, all Black people to the deck. Like, there are so many just like I mean, it's funny, but it was also like, come on, there were so many knee-jerk reactions of like, we found 100 Black wedding vendors that you should follow. Like, look at all of it. We found them. Look, we're not racist. We love Black people here. And it was just kind of like, y'all. Yeah, really?
I
like
know,
you can't cram us into one panel and say, oh, racism's done. You can't cram us into one post and say, look, we're not racist. Like, come on. Put some thought into it. Be mindful about it. Like, take your time really developing that organic content versus just having like top 100 Black wedding vendors that we found on Instagram. You know, we had our social team researching all night. It's like, what are you doing? You're laughing because you've seen those posts.
I
You've
know.
seen
It's
those
like
posts.
I'm crying. Oh my goodness.
Where I'm just because it's like, and the thing is, like, none of the vendors in that list want to be the top black. They are black, but they are top tier vendors. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
that's
Don't do like a don't do a separate but equal
yeah,
list of like what are we
no,
doing?
no.
Like you have to do. There has to be a level. I think that's why we were laughing because it makes us realize like they don't have those people on their teams, right? Because if they did, they would have already been doing this. So for it to be just kind of like, we found them all, y'all. We found all of them. It's like, what? What? What are you doing?
That's exactly it though. And I think to your point, it's one of those things that like if you have number one, if you care,
Yeah.
you should
Yeah.
see that. You should see color and
Mm-hmm.
see how you are attributing everything
Mm-hmm.
about what you're publishing. So
Yeah.
literally everyone is represented, number one.
Yeah.
That should be important to you. But then if there's something that you're not good at, maybe you just don't know. Maybe I was
Exactly.
joking. I can't remember. I think it was somebody we were talking and I was saying how, my son and I were talking, we were laughing because we were like, it's not like there's like a special black Google. It's not like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't, figure this out and be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't use their Google, so I can't really look things up, or I don't use their Instagram, so I can't look it up. Really? Are you like, come on? Like,
A special black Google. That's hilarious.
no, you can literally, if you take the time, you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's one of those things like, I love the fact that on that panel, the publication panel, there were publications there that were saying, we want to be more intentional, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
But they were also saying, and I don't know if this was after you jumped or before, but they were also saying how like, oh, but like, I just don't know a lot of black photographers to reach out to, and nobody did it. And one of the things like Ellie just totally shut it down. She was like,
yeah.
yeah, I exist. You could just reach out and be like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And no one's saying like, okay, if this is your aesthetic, that, oh, well, black people don't shoot like that. Like they don't take those types of photos, or they don't have those types. Like it was just, it's one of those things like, oh, I don't know. Again, like I can't look it up. I can't. And if I do, it's just so much work. And it's you know what?
Yeah.
You didn't do it before. You don't have anyone on your role, like on your staff that's doing that. And if you don't know where to look, that's part of the problem. Like
Exactly.
you should know. And if
that's like you're telling on yourself almost, right?
Exactly.
It's just like, well, I don't know any black people that do that. So I don't, it just is like, you're watching people almost self-destruct.
Yeah.
Because like, I think the way that racism has been branded, I think, especially as a kid of the 90s, like the way racism has been branded is like, if you're racist, you're a bad person. Therefore, I don't think I'm a bad person. So there's no way that I could be racist, right?
Totally.
And so like, it's almost like Austin Powers, like when one of the bots or something, like the water hits them, you're just watching people self-destruct because it's like, take a breather. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so glad to see so many people like talking about anti-racism.
Yeah.
Because anti-racism is like, yo, you have been conditioned to believe something. It's going to take you a while to check that behavior. In the meantime, here are some things that you can do. Instead of like that, well, I'm not a bad person. Like I made this list of 100 black people that I found on Google all night, like whatever. Yeah, I think it's just like one of those things to your original point of saying like, if we don't see ourselves, other people don't see us either, right?
Right.
And so it's just like, oh well, I don't see them, so I guess black people don't shoot that aesthetic, or they don't have that type of whatever. And it's like, no, that's not true. It's just like editorial bias. Like if you're not putting us in these things, we don't see ourselves, and therefore people begin to have this like causation correlation thing. Well, I guess black queer couples don't get married. check out Black Gay Weddings. They do, okay? They do. There are multiple accounts of like, yes, they absolutely do get married. Or just like, well, I've never seen like a black photographer like do that type of style before. Like, have you even spent more than an hour researching that? Then you would know that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
Like Latoya Dixon created a like, I think it's queenphotographers.com. There are black women photographers in every state in these United States of America. Go find them. That's a free resource for you, you know? But like for people to say that, it's just like, again, you have some work you need to do
Yeah.
to get there.
Right.
And that I think that's really going to be the barrier and deciding factor moving forward. Are people willing to do the work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they're not, then we're gonna have more of the like, well, we tried.
Yeah.
We gave people a couple weeks. Do you see all those black faces we put in like 4 rows of our Instagram feed? Why can't you be happy with that? It's like, oh my god. And exactly, Queer Officiant said it perfectly.
Yeah.
Do you know them?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you knew them, if you had a relationship with these business owners, and I'm really, really hoping that these publications, like beyond this, that they're beginning these relationships with these business owners so that they can do like, why not have like a 1-page spread to one of them versus like this tiny little post about here's a slideshow, right? Here's a slideshow. We see you. No, you don't. Right? You're having almost like an allergic reaction meltdown over there, talking about like, find everybody black. And it's just like, okay, come on.
And that's honestly like, I think it's funny because it's like, and I do not, let me be extremely clear. I'm not saying that I don't think it's a good start. That's not what
It's a start. It's a start.
I'm saying it should not be the end. And once you start, right, you have to continue. So, okay, maybe you didn't know. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, you know now.
Exactly.
So what are you
now
gonna
you
do
know.
now? Like, you know.
Well, now you know. So what's next, right?
You have to
and it's just like, I think so many people are ready for that. They're like, we've been doing this work. We've been talking about this. We've been asking like, you know, at all of these, I think it was Awesomely Lovey talked about this years ago about going to some show, not a show, what is the word I'm looking for? She was going to be on a panel or a speaker, featured speaker, and they didn't want to pay her what everybody else was getting paid because she was niche, right? And the conversation about like, do we have access to education? Are we paying people to come and speak and help us? Are we paying people to be a part of our brands, you know? And so what I've said to a lot of people who have been like in that Queer Officiant said it of like, Carlos said it of like short circuiting, you know, that like, I'm not bad, but I'm not bad, you know, like that, who are like stuck in that cycle and where a lot of that defensiveness comes from of just being like, but I'm not a bad person. Cool. Set that to the side. Like what we're asking for is for you to do better.
Yeah.
What we're asking you for, and the reason we're asking you is because you have the power to change this.
Yeah.
This is not a new conversation, right? And so like I get frustrated because it's like, okay, if you're aware of us, build the relationship. It's not like we're in a foreign planet. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, right next to you, right? We're your neighbors. Like, talk to us. Build those relationships with us. Black Gay Weddings is here, and they just said, they gave a great James Baldwin quote.
Yeah.
How long do we have to wait for your progress? Exactly. Like, it's not like difficult things are being requested. They're really not.
Yeah.
It's just like that internal like resistance to changing.
Yeah.
It just being like, oh wow. Well, because you have to look at exactly. I know it's funny, but you have to look at the way your actions have possibly and probably contributed to racism. And that's uncomfortable for people.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you got to move past that so we can actually get to work.
Well,
Because if you're, yeah.
no, like you're like, that's what I like. That is so important. It's the reaction and the defensiveness.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
I really care about you, right, and you're telling me
Yeah.
something, when you say, "Hey, this hurt me," my response should be, "I am so sorry. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
What can I do to fix this?" Right? Because
Yeah.
if my intention, my heart is actually about making it right, and
Hmm.
maybe I didn't intend to hurt you in the first place. Okay, well, I want to go above and beyond now so that you understand that, first of all, it wasn't my intention, and second of all, I want to make it right. What can I do to make it right?
Yeah.
Because it's about you, not about me.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so it's like, if someone's coming to you as a business, a publication, and saying, "Hey, this isn't right," or "I want you to do this," and you're like, oh, well, I've been trying. I've been trying
Yeah.
really hard, and I've just been busy,
Hmm.
and I've been trying though. I mean, that black Google is really hard to get into, and
Black Google.
I've been
It's
trying
so
to
funny.
type, but they use a special keyboard. No, this is
Right.
not
I don't know. My gosh. But it's so true. Like, and that's really like a perfect metaphor, because I imagine like if someone comes to you and it's just like, I broke my leg because of something that you did. You can't go on one hand, did you? Doesn't look that broken to me. You know what I mean? I think you're fine on that one leg. One leg is enough. Like, like, did you really break your leg? It doesn't look like that to me. I'm fine. I don't have that problem. And then like the other side of that reaction, like the pendulum swing, is like someone just throwing band-aids at you. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, but I broke my leg. Like, I don't need band-aids. That is not what I asked for. Can you call somebody to help? Like, I broke my leg. Like, that's what it feels like. It's like, okay, but to your point, and what I feel like I've been saying to a couple people who are like stuck in that cycle of like, well, I just want to make, the first, someone said it perfectly. I want to make the right first step. And I'm like, the right first step was like 400 years ago. Like, you just step, step, just step. It's okay if it's wobbly. Like, people are going to be there to let you know if it was wobbly, obviously, or if it needs to correct. Like, just focus on continuing to make those steps,
Yeah,
right? Because people's as again, I know a lot of people are like, weddings aren't political. They are. People's lives depend on this.
yeah,
Like, and you might think, oh no, like it's just a magazine, it's just a blog, it's not it doesn't make a big difference. It absolutely does. Because if you don't, like, I keep saying it, but like, gotta go for it again. If you don't see yourself
hmm,
in spaces, in situations, and opportunities, you will not believe that they are available to you. You
right,
will build your entire life thinking like, well, a wedding isn't possible, so maybe that entirely impacts the choices that you make in relationships that you have. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to be able to see that for what it is, and
totally.
not just brush it off and be like, I don't think you broke your leg. It looks like you just need, here's some ice, you know?
Here's some ice.
Here's some ice.
Stay off it for
I'm like,
24 hours. It's
oh,
fine. Yeah.
exactly. It's like, but how do I get back to my car? Like, like, how do I get home? It's 100% that. And, I want people who are listening. I feel like there are two factions of vendors who have been talking about this, who have made their business around this, who are ready for the things to change. And I also feel like there's like a whole group of vendors who are like late to the party essentially, but like, we want to learn, we want to do better, we want to change. And trying to find that space where we can like calibrate in between, because it's like, when you're learning something for the first time, even though, I'm not going to infantilize any adult who was learning about this and say like, oh, it's like a little kid. No, you're an adult, right? It's very easy to ask questions that are traumatizing, that can hurt people, that can take a lot of emotional labor, out of people. So it's like, you want to make sure that people are learning, but also that the people that are doing this hardcore advocacy work are being taken care of and are being protected. And, you know, like, I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with wedding vendor friends who have been like, hey, I was the only one in this group of 80,000 people to ask this question, and I got piled on, and people were yelling at me, and people were calling me all types of names and all this other type of stuff. So I understand when, like, all of a sudden all these corporations are like, we love Black lives. We love you guys so much. It's like, where were you? Because, you know, even if you look at some of the feeds, it's like a line of demarcation where it's just like, and then we started caring about Black people.
Like, just, yes, you can see when we started to care. And
when we started,
I love what you were saying, though, about how it's like, it's about that response. It's about that intention and understanding, like, listen, I get it. A lot of people are like, I don't want to say the wrong thing, so I'm trying to craft the right thing, and obviously that takes time. And you know what? If you, again, I don't care who you are. You probably have a friend, and if that friend comes to you and says, "Hey, you hurt me," they're clearly telling you because they love you, they love that relationship, and they want to make things better. And they understand that you might not know that you really hurt them. So what's the response? Oh, I didn't mean to. You don't say that to a friend. Maybe you say that to someone you don't care about, but you don't say that to a friend. To a friend, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Right? First thing, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And then they're like, okay, well, you know, and then you say, well, what can I do? If they say A, B, and C, and you're like, okay, I'm going to start with A, and I want you to know that I'm doing it. The minute they read the thing, they enroll in a class, whatever it is, watch the video, they respond and they're like, I watched this. This is what I learned. I didn't know this. Can I ask you a question? Right? Like, because it's not like they're going to do it in 2 seconds, but the fact that there is this dialogue opening up because of that, that's what people are looking for. And I think it's important to make sure that, again, whether it's a business, a friend, a corporation, a publication, doesn't matter, that it is that relationship that if someone's saying to you, hey, I'm hurting, I've hurt, you don't need 5 days to say, I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I'm going to do better. Like, just a minute. Hold on. What comes after that? Sorry. Sorry.
Sorry? I think that's the word.
Use Arial font, or should we use, like, it doesn't matter. Just say, I'm sorry. You say, I'm sorry. That's I screwed up. I'm going to work on it. It's going to take, but
you hit the nail on the head.
Like, it's not about, because if you actually care about the person, the most important thing is that you say, I'm sorry. Like, that's what you say first. It's not like, hold on. I have my really nice, papyrus letterhead here that I'm going to, like,
not papyrus.
Like, really? I'm going to chisel this stone. Just a minute. I'm going to letter press this. No, you don't have to.
Yeah.
You can just say, I'm sorry. I want to do better.
It's like emotional triage, right? Like, what can I do now to stop the pain, to stop the bleeding? What can I do in the next 5 minutes, not 5 days, like you just said? Because, like, and another thing I think is really important is, you said, like, you would immediately say, I'm sorry, right? Because I'm sorry says I'm listening.
Yes.
I'm listening to what you're saying. But what I've seen a lot of people say is, please forgive us. Please forgive us for not knowing. Please forgive us. Again, it's just kind of like, I'm presenting you with something that you have done that has harmed me. You can't then say, without any reflection, without any time, without any consideration, okay, but I need you to forgive me in order for it to be, no, you can't expect that from people. And in the same way, like, I think some people have been like disillusioned and thinking like, well, if I post this black square and I give y'all a good old week of content, you'll just come storming through, and it'll be like when Denzel got the flag and glory. Like what? Like no, it's gonna take time. It's going to take time for people. You are trying to gain people's trust
Mm-hmm.
back, right? Because for a lot of us, the thing that sucks about being any level of marginalization is that like you normalize things that shouldn't be normal.
Totally.
Like it shouldn't be normal that I had one client, like my very first client, bless her, I was bringing stuff for her bridal. She was doing like a brunch for her bridesmaids
Mm-hmm.
at the place where they were getting their hair done. And so I walk into this blow dry bar, and when I tell you the receptionist took one look at my hair and damn near had a heart attack. She was just like, "Oh God, oh God." She knew she was gonna have to tell me like, "We don't know how to do your hair here," like, right? What? And I was like, oh, I saw that fear in her eyes. I was like, oh no, I'm just here to drop stuff off. And she was just like, oh, you know what I mean? But like that shouldn't be normalized. That like I know there are certain places that I can't go because people don't want to be bothered with learning how to take care of my hair, right? And it shouldn't be normalized that like it's funny because like she really like damn near almost like she was breathing hard and I barely walked through the door. I was like, come on, girl, calm down. But like, yeah, like it shouldn't be normalized that people, if they don't see themselves enough, they're just like, okay, well, this service isn't for me. And as an ally to the LGBTQIA community, one of the things that's been like really heartbreaking is that, the amount of people who come for consultations and saying like, hey, I thought this person was cool. I reached out to them and they said that they're not going to serve me. That shouldn't be a normal part of anybody's experience,
Right.
especially on your wedding day, especially for your wedding. What's supposed to be this milestone moment
Wow.
of joy and love and celebration. Like you shouldn't be afraid during your process because you have to come out to everybody or people are not going to service you properly. And it's just like one of those things of like you can't expect audiences who you have alienated,
Right.
neglected and ignored, just say what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't expect them to come running to you with open arms after like a week. After like a month, right? Not even after a year. Like that, you really have to commit yourself to the outcome versus just saying like, well, we tried. I don't know what happened. Like I guess Black Google's SEO wasn't working or something. Like they just didn't find us. Like what? Like it's just, yeah.
Totally. Oh my goodness. And that's, I mean, really, I mean, at the core of all of this, it has to do with your humbleness and willing to educate yourself and know, hey, I don't have all the answers. I just don't. And so whether it is about the right verbiage, whether it's about how many,
or the right font.
The right font.
Font.
Using a serif font, you should only really, it's not like that's you have to be willing to say like, hey, I don't know. And I definitely don't if someone says, hey, you hurt me and your intention was not to hurt them and you didn't know that what you did was hurtful, your first thing is like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. What can I do? Like you don't wait for the 5 days. You don't try to look for the right font, and you're like, I need to educate. At that point, you're like, wow, I need to do better. Right. Because it's like, there's an onus, like, okay, I'm going to read up on it. It's like anything with your business. It's like, you're going to look it up on Google. You're going to sign up for a class, read an article.
Yeah.
Somehow you can use Google, this wonderful tool, to find all your answers to life. But somehow when it comes to diversity or the Black experience, again, it's Black Google. It doesn't work. No, that's not how,
It's not like there have been books written on this for, a couple generations, It's not like we just started talking about this today. And again, I liken it to like, did you ever watch Pleasantville? The movie Pleasantville that came out years ago.
So
It was like
yeah, but I never
Joan
watched.
Allen and Tobey Maguire.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
I don't even remember if it's good, but visually it was appealing. But like everything is in gray, everything is in black and white, right? Just like in The Wizard of Oz, right
Right.
before Dorothy, the house
Yeah.
crashes on the witch, right? Everything's in black and white. When you have a friend, and I will say this, one of the more annoying things I really hate is that so often people learn because of relationships and proxy to a community
Mm,
versus being like, hey, this is just the right thing for me to learn.
right.
But that's a whole other
Right.
conversation.
Right.
It's like walking out of the house
Yeah.
as Dorothy and being introduced to a new color.
Yeah.
And so like if you learn about like what it is to be Black, not just in this country but in this world, what that looks like. Let's say your friend just introduced you to the color red, and you realize very quickly how much red there is in the world. And you're looking around and you're like, how the hell did I not see this? Oh my God, there's red everywhere. You go down the street and you have a friend who's like indigenous. Well, they introduce you to the color blue. You look around and you're like, oh my God, there's so much red and blue everywhere. And for every marginalized community, there is that color, right? And if you're at the intersection of any of that, right? If you're like trans and Black or disabled and indigenous or whatever combination there is, there's so much more lying in that. And it's fascinating to me when people are like, well, I didn't know. And then when they see it, you cannot unsee it. And the efficiency of like these systems, when people talk about systemic oppression, the efficiency of these systems, like related to patriarchy and white supremacy, is that the people in power are not meant to see it because that's not their part. That's not the part that they
Oh,
play, right? They're not meant to see it.
and
It's just kind of, oh, that's that thing over there. That's that problem that you have. That's why they can say things like, are you sure you broke your leg? Or we posted two Black couples last month. What are you talking about? Like, we can have that type of reaction because you don't see it because you're not designed to see it.
right.
And the thing that's even trickier about that is somewhere in you, you still know it exists.
Exactly.
Like you still know it's there, but like that's not the game that's been laid ahead of you.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh my goodness, Jordan, seriously, I could talk to you forever. And like, I was like, so last week, just because they're gonna kick us off in 3 minutes.
You're fine.
But so last week I was like, I can't talk to you, Jordan, because I know I'm gonna laugh. I know you're gonna make
Sorry. I just thought of that. I'm so sorry I made you laugh too much.
totally fine. But I was like, I know Jordan's gonna make me laugh, so there's no way I can have a conversation with Jordan because I'd be like, that's her, like totally like I'd be like, really? Oh, that's really funny. Like can't do that. Like I need to at least like
Oh my gosh.
I'll laugh with my weird band-aid on my melon. But Jordan, thank you so much. So much for being here and again just for being you and honestly like I think it's so important. Like I love what you're doing and I love how you're so willing to put yourself out there. And I just, again, like, I don't think I could thank you enough for all the work that you're doing, not just for your couples and for all intersectional communities. Like but really just the fact that you're doing this for the love of everyone. So, I mean, really, like, I thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. I'm so sorry I made you laugh so much. I just now thought about that, like, oh my God. Jordan, what did you do?
Oh my goodness. No, you're seriously totally fine. And like the pain is whatever. The doctor's like, oh, it's going to be, you might have to, I don't know. I'm like, whatever. I don't care if I have a scar. It's my own stupidness.
No, I don't want you to be in pain though.
Oh, I'm not in pain. Totally not in pain. They like they just like stitched me up. They're like, does that hurt? And I'm like, no, it's fine.
Okay.
I have like the highest pain tolerance ever. I probably shouldn't tell people that because then they're like, oh, we can
Don't tell anybody.
yeah. They're like, we can torture you forever. No. Yeah.
Oh,
So it's all good. All good. But thank you. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for, thank you guys. Thank you so much for being a part. They're going to kick us off again. But tomorrow we're going to have, who do we have? No, I just totally lost it. Tomorrow we have Denise from Denise Lilly Engagements. And so she's going to chat about luxury cultural weddings, which I think is so cool. Her new kind of venture is Fusion Inclusion. And so she's going to talk about that. So you guys can join us tomorrow at 6. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye, everybody.